Hey everyone, Deb Knapp. Welcome back to iClimb, and today we're going to work on some loading and gait. So what I mean by loading is the integrity when that foot hits the ground. Does my body, do my legs have the capability of staying in alignment, or do they want to collapse? Do my knees want to collapse? Does my torso want to go sideways? That needs to have integrity, so we're going to work on that. So what we're going to do is engage a lot of stability muscles, so you will feel it a lot of times not in necessarily the working side, but the stabilizing side. All right? First thing we're going to do, and again, this is just a checkpoint, is those inline gluteals. That back foot has to be straight, so we'll start with the left, parallel to our surface, whether that's a wall or a counter or a chair. Right foot is in front. And again, pay attention to the balance on the parameter of the foot. If the hips are in balance, you won't have a whole lot of this. When you start to feel that perturbation, realize it's because some things are off in the hips. So you're going to squeeze and release the glutes, keeping the quads and the low abdominal shut down. In other words, we don't want these to do what the glutes are supposed to do, which is what happens. That's called compensation. You're going to squeeze and release, and squeeze and release. And I would suggest you do this on each side maybe 15 times, just as a checkpoint before we start the loading. And squeeze and release. Notice again from the feet up, what's going on? Do you feel like the torso wants to continually lean? Again, if it wants to go right, it's lack of stability on the left side. Make sure the head is not forward, which will pull that torso forward. It needs to be centered over that torso. And you're squeezing and releasing. Squeezing and releasing, and we're going to do both sides again 12 to 15 times. As long as you're taking time to, again, assess everything from the feet up. And squeeze and release. Squeeze and release. Squeeze, release. Also, when you're standing, those arms should be straight, not at an angle. That says internal rotation, too much tightness here, and too weak on the back side. So when you're standing, those arms should be straight, thumbs forward, fingers open. A lot of you are going to be here, which also says weakness again in the upper mid-back muscles because they're not keeping you open. And again, that's going to help lower your center of gravity. So you're going to squeeze, release, and let's pretend we've already done 12 to 15. Let's do 2 more. Squeeze, release, squeeze, release. All right, so we're going to balance our weight on both feet, all right? So I'm going to slide the right foot forward so that my leg is straight. In gait, this should swing forward in dorsiflexion, in other words, the foot pulled back so that I don't trip, and the knee should be in extension. You need to have a nice long gait. So I always tell people, I don't want to see you here. I want your foot to clear the other foot, all right? So we're going to slide it forward. Legs straight, and we're going to bring it to the back. When you go to the back, make absolutely sure that the leg is straight, not here. Now you've shut down the glute, which should be your driver as you go backwards, opening the hip up. You're going to slide it forward, and you're going to slide it back. Again, we're working, making sure all those pieces and parts are on the same path. And forward, and back. And if you notice, my back foot is facing straight down, my heel is facing up. Do not allow this to happen. This immediately takes those hips to rotation. See that? So as you slide back, focus on stability muscles that keep that on that track. So slide it forward, slide it back, chest up, slide it forward, and slide it back. Now, I'll guarantee you, a lot of you are already starting to feel that in the loading side. Perfectly fine, because we're working on both. We're working on our tracking and we're working on our loading. So you're sliding it forward, straight leg, straight back. From the glute, the leg is straight. If that's a challenge for you and you're here, tighten. As soon as you tighten the quad, it has to work with the glute together, okay? So let's do 3 more on that side. So we're gonna slide forward, slide it back, slide it forward, and slide it back. And last time, slide it forward and back. And then we're going to do the other side. And sometimes you feel like you need to do this because you can feel all those stability muscles working in the hip, and that's perfectly fine. Again, I recommend that you do this in your socks or barefoot. Pay attention that your toes don't do this. Make the hips do the job as stability and get them in stability mode. So now, you're going to stand on the right and you're going to slide this one forward, making sure that that foot is in line with the hip, not somewhere over here or out here. Again, that takes my hip to rotation. So I make sure that back foot is straight, and then I'm going to slide it back. So in gait, each side has to have a stability mode. Each side has to have a working mode. So in this case, if I step on this one, stability, now it's working. Now this side has to go to stability mode while the other side swings forward. This is what we're working on. And swinging back, toes are facing down, heel is straight up, torso is upright, head is upright. And swing forward and back. Again, legs straight, glute is your primary mover, driving that hip backwards and open. And you may feel a stretch in the front of the quad. That's perfectly fine, or front of the hip. So we're going to do both sides several times. I would suggest at least 12 to 15. However, we challenge, we don't force. If it gets too much, take a break, do 6 or 7 on one side, then switch it, go back and forth. Now we're going to lateral work, because you have to be able to get in and out of the shower, in and out of the car. You've got to make sure those hips can move laterally with stability. So now what we're going to do is we're going to slide. In this case, we're standing on the right, left goes sideways. Pay attention to my foot position. Do not allow the heel to turn in and the toe to go out. My hips immediately went to rotation. This makes the quad more of the primary mover, straightening that leg and going out, than the lateral hip. So we slide out, and I always say heel first. And again, you're not leaning, so you're not shifting weight. It's not weight shift. It's continually loading that right side as you allow that left leg to go sideways. In other words, this should stay completely still while these can do whatever they want to do, kind of like the wind chime. We're in stability mode. And you're going to slide it, again, heel first, toes are forward, and bring it back. Again, I would suggest 12 to 15 times. If that stabilizing hip becomes challenged, take a break, wiggle it out, go to the other side. We're going to do a few on this side. And again, try not to lean. That shoulder needs to be in line with the hip. So you're going to slide and bring it in. And you may notice that one side is harder than the other. Foot facing forward, heel facing back, hips are completely forward, and bring it in. And you're going to open. If you need to put your hand there, do. Try to get your torso to do the job and the hip to do the job. Again, make sure you're not leaning. And slide and bring it in. Again, several times, 12 to 15 on each side. And then the next piece is we're going to weight shift. You have to be able to weight shift. In and out of the car, in and out of the chair, it doesn't matter. You have to be able to shift the weight right to left. So we're going to now bilaterally, in other words, equal weight distribution on right and left, and then bring it back in. So now you're going to push off, use your feet, use your toes, push off, bring it back in. And again, we're going to do that on both sides, making sure that you can do it on both sides. So now we've done anterior, posterior on the right and the left. You're going to do this on both sides. Again, weight shifting and bringing it back. Let's do 3 more, and we're going to pretend that we've already done the other side. So 3 and back, and 2 and 1 and back. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do that, and we're going to add the hips to that. So as we step and we laterally, in other words, equal weight distribution, bilaterally load on both feet, now what you're going to do, what we did in anterior posterior tilts, is engage your low abdominals. Put your hips behind you. Your weight should be in your heels. My head is forward and my back is flat. And then I'm going to stand up and I'm going to bring it back in. So I'm going to step. Equal weight distribution, and I want to make sure that I don't have any rotation in the hips. Okay? So check that. I'm going to engage low abdominals, put my weight into my heels, back flat, head up, bring it up, working those quads, push off, bring it back in. And I'm going to do that several times to each side. Again, check, make sure there's no rotation. Engage the low abdominals, sit and back up, so quads, push off, bring it back in. And then if you want, you can do that to alternate sides. So then I'll go left, again making sure that there's no rotation, all right? And then you're going to squat. Functional movement, this needs practice. Low abdominals have to go first. Do not tuck your hips under. Bring your hips behind you. That's how you don't miss the chair. Hips behind you, weight in your heels. Stand up, bring it back in. And right, drop down, bring it up and in. And here's what you're going to notice. Number one, my back doesn't hurt so much anymore because now I'm engaging those low abdominals. I'm getting lower, and it's much easier to get up and down. And my balance and my loading is completely different. Okay, after you do that several times, and again, there's called an overload principle. Make sure you do at least 3 or 4 in really good form that are a challenge. Then we're going to go back to our inline gluteals. And we're going to do these on both sides. So this time I've got my right and back, and I'm going to squeeze, release. Squeeze, release. Again, where am I now compared to where I started? Not as much perturbation on the feet, a little more grounded, toes are open, I feel more stable, my balance is better. Squeeze, release. And again, I would recommend you do another 12 to 15 on each side. Squeeze, release, squeeze, release. That's a little bit of loading and gait work. Thanks for joining.